Another day, another Beat Saber map and critique video. For those of you unfamiliar with this series on my channel, I like to talk about the music pack as a whole before we begin delving deep onto the actual maps themselves. Today we're going to be doing the Green Day music pack, which was announced at the 2019 video games accompanied by a concert from Green Day themselves. This is probably Beat Game's highest selling music pack in forms of downloadable content that they put out thus far, just going off of the Steam sales. And although Steam sales don't make up all the sales for this video game, it is also released on PlayStation VR, the Oculus Store, and the Oculus Quest Store as well. We can kind of extrapolate that data and see that this is indeed their highest selling music pack that they put out. And it makes a lot of sense too. Green Day and video games are just a match made in heaven, going all the way back to the Tony Hawk franchise of video games. A lot of us have a lot of pent-up nostalgia for those simpler times and video games. For me in particular, I really enjoyed Underground 1, 2, and American Wasteland. American Wasteland in particular being probably one of my top 10 games of all time, even though it's considered the black sheep of that era of Tony Hawk games. I just really enjoyed the story, the soundtrack, being able to make your own skate parks. I believe it was the first Tony Hawk game to even let you do that. Green Day's Holiday was in that video game as well, I remember. And that casino cop chase right at the end of the game. I hope I'm not spoiling that for you, but the game's been out for over 10 years, so I'm going to hope you played it at this point. That was just one of the greatest moments in gaming of all time for me personally. So, Green Day Music Pack comes with its own environment, actually two environments. It comes with Green Day Grenade and Green Day. Very similar environments. The main difference is that Green Day Grenade has the heart grenade from Green Day as an object in the map. And the regular Green Day environment is basically the same environment, but just without that grenade. American Idiot, Boulevard, and Broken Dreams, and Holiday all use the Green Day Grenade environment, whereas Father of All, Fire Ready, Aim, and Minority all use the regular Green Day environment. The reason being is that this grenade object is from the American Idiot cover art. So American Idiot, Boulevard, and Broken Dreams, and Holiday are all on the same album. For music choice itself, I think they did a pretty good job. They got American Idiot, Boulevard, and Broken Dreams, and Holiday, which are almost necessities at this point. We also do have two new songs for them, Father of All and Fire Ready Aim. I'm pretty sure these ones were announced at the same time that the music pack was announced at the Video Game Awards. So it was a nice way for them to cross-promote that. We also have Minority, which was from their 2000 album. I forget the name of it. Can't really blame me for not knowing all their albums. They got a lot. But it would have been nice to see Wake Me Up When September Ends, even though it is a very, very low-tempo song, very chill, hard to map to in general. It would have been nice to see it over Minority. And Minority is a good song in its own right, but if we're gonna cut songs to make room for another, I would have cut Minority and have Wake Me Up When September Ends. There's a lot of other songs they could have put up in here as well, but I think they did a fairly decent job in their song choice. It also does come with custom colors, so the Green Day colors, they're all shades of green and teal. It makes sense, the artist is called Green Day, so why not put green? So that's the reasoning for that, I suppose. We're going to play with all default, so it's going to hit me with the environment and the colors. I want to play these as they're intended. We're going to go ahead and start out with American Idiot. It's got a good song preview to it if you want to listen here. So in the custom song community, we had a mapper named Downy Cat, and very early on he would map a lot of the Green Day songs, a lot of their biggest hits. And I do want to compare his song previews versus the ones using the DLC here, because it's quite amusing. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my song list. We're going to go to American Idiot. So this is Downy Cat's song preview. You can see how similar they are. They had really good ideas for what to put. Beat Games themselves did a little bit of a better job here, because Downy Cat catches it right on the second syllable, frickin' idiot, and then this actually gets the full bar. So let's go ahead and get started. And that's the grenade I was talking about. So we already have some interesting stuff going on here. I need to be playing in practice mode. I need to remember that from last video. So there's already some interesting stuff going on at the beginning of this map. We have downs in the middle row, which is fine. It just needs to fit the song. I'm going to play it through a couple of times and get a feeling for it. Alright, let's go ahead and talk about that pattern real quick. So the main issue I'm finding here is that this note jump speed and this spawn offset just does not match the music very well. It's putting the note super far back and the note jump speed is super low. They have a reasoning for using this combination right here, and I have some insight onto why they're using this specific combination. So a very long time ago, I put out this chart to help find optimal note jump speed and spawn offset combinations to make a map feel good, and this is all varying depending on the BPM of the song. So I'm going to take a step back just to explain why they do this. So American Idiot is at 93 BPM. I have this bookmarked. I'm going to pull it up. So this is the chart that I made. And if you check right here, American Idiot would be on the BPM column here, 90 approximately. And then as we go over to Expert Plus, we'll see 14 note jump speed and 0.75. They used 1 instead. They're using just slightly tweaked values from this chart here to make it fit their streamlined agenda a little bit more, but this graph doesn't really hold up in my opinion. I made a V2 of this chart that's much better overall. I would suggest they use that instead. But as you can see, as we play this map a little bit more, that this note jump speed and spawn offset that they've chosen just doesn't fit very well. Just a quick aside. Oops. But my point is, it doesn't feel very good with these patterns. And there's a little pause right here in the rhythm as we hit this teal note going up, and then we're going immediately again into that teal note over that pause. And I know why they're doing that. They're doing it to make it feel a little easier to play, and you're also suspending your hand over that musical pause as we come crashing back down. And then we got bass drum kicks right there to this little pattern that goes back and forth, a nice little detail. To be honest, I didn't even buy this music pack until earlier today, and I found myself using similar patterns and similar songs that use just a drum kick. I did a Rise Against map recently that did the same exact thing. And they're getting those 2 horizontal notes to the end of that bar. So they're trying to keep with that motif. These patterns are okay for the most part, they just don't fit with the note jump speed. Yeah, I can already tell this is a freak map just by the little single sabering part. Not a lot of people like to do that. They're just too scared to pull it off, but it works well here. Repeats of the same patterns. Now that part is kind of hard to read because it's using the dot notes here. Yeah, it's super hard to read this pattern. I'm gonna do it one more time. So it seems like they're getting it to that little guitar screech that aren't right there, and that's why they're using it. But it's so hard to read because there's so many notes on screen because of the spawn offset that they're using. We're getting approximately 2 full beats visible at all times, with that low BPM being, what is this, around 80, 90? It just puts a lot of notes on screen and it's hard to read that pattern. So I'd suggest that they change this. Once we get further on in the song, I'm going to suggest what they should use instead. And again, we get the so we got a dot note right there again. Just another little detail I noticed. Well, maybe I'm the American. Oh, also, all of these songs that have swears in it are censored as well. This is the original radio edit that they had going on here. So they censored that. I think they censored fag and holiday as well. And father of all is just outright censored, like the name itself. It's supposed to say father of all motherfuckers, but it just says father of all ... So something to keep in mind. They did censor Overkill as well, if you're familiar with that song. So we got something that the community calls invert. This when you have a dot in the top, or a down note in the top row, followed by an up in the bottom row. This also applies to horizontals as well, that go inward from here, and then followed by inwards from here. It's kind of weird to see that they were using those dots earlier to that but I'm hearing that sound pop up again and again, and they're not consistent with the use of the dots there. Like, we didn't see it right there, but I heard the same noise. Maybe it has to reach some kind of volume threshold for them to warrant using it. Again, patterns from earlier, they're fine. And they're mirrored this time. Mirroring helps them get a little bit of variety into the song without them breaking flow state very much. Yeah, definitely a freak map. We had a little bit of a polyrhythm going on right here, if we want to play this back one more time. Some people are scared of polyrhythms. I really like them personally. They add a lot of flair to a song. It's a very literal music interpretation of a map. Sometimes it's to capture the motion of the instrument itself. So if there's a bass hit that they want, sometimes they'll force it into being a down. If it's a guitar stroke, sometimes they definitely want it to be a down for the downstroke. Going into the second chorus of the song, and we're getting the same patterns from before. And this time it doesn't look like it's mirrored, so it looks like they're keeping to it. It looks like they're opting to instead mirror the verses instead. Again, that to the dot. And then we end the song out with a bunch of spam notes I'm not a particular fan of. Alright, and the song is over. It's funny, the practice plugin, how it interprets my good cuts. The biggest issue isn't necessarily the mapping itself, it's more so the note jump speed and offset, and I'm going to go ahead and recommend for this map 16 and 0.5. Before I made this video, I played all of these songs in sequence, playing at the intended note jump speed and offset plus a new value, and I played the maps all the way through using the new values that I've chosen. So if it sounds like I'm out of breath, it's because I've been playing these maps for like 3 hours prior to recording this. And this feels so much better. The difference is night and day. I just want to get to the part that was really tripping me up. It's coming, I swear. Yeah, much easier to read now that there's way less notes on the screen, It's also a bit faster now with the note jump speed being at 16. The reasoning for me suggesting to have less notes on screen at once isn't always just because it's easier. Sometimes it's to match the song as well. My recommendation is for any type of song that has a compressed type of sound. So rock music, lots of R&B have a compressed type of sound. For me personally, that just means the sound stage is quite limited. A lot of the song is going to be just overall at the same volume as well. So if we listen to like Green Day as a band or Panic at the Disco, they're rock bands, and so they have a very compressed sound. They have a smaller sound stage as well for the most part, and using that, having a lot of notes on the screen accompanied by this type of music doesn't sit very well for me. Plus, it makes it harder to play the map most of the time, at least. Sometimes you can have notes further back as a stylistic choice, but I really don't like it for this song in particular, and just any rock song for that matter, unless it's a very niche scenario. Let's take Imagine Dragons for an example. Their map's Bad Liar, very airy song, very epic type of music. Take a listen. Lots of echo, lots of reverb. This one has a lot of notes on screen at once. They spawn very far away and it fits the tone of the song. Same thing with It's Time here. It's a very open and airy song, and the notes also spawn really far back on that as well. So it makes a lot of sense for them to use it stylistically, feeling wise. I would prefer for them across the board to have all the notes spawn closer in on the majority of these maps. Some of them in particular, like Boulevard of Broken Dreams, work really well with what they've chosen, but American Idiot I really think needs to be changed to that 16 and 0.5. Let's take Panic at the Disco for an example. This is a rock band as well, well, more like pop rock. But all of these songs spawn in with the notes super close, and I don't know if that was done because they realized it's a rock song and rock songs just feel better spawning closer in. But they did that across the board for all these maps. I want to see that carried over for Green Day as well, have the notes spawn closer in. A lot of the patterns don't really need you to be able to see them from far away, and the values I'm going to suggest don't really change it all that much. So it's not really going to cause any issues with the patterns currently in the maps. In fact, it'll help these patterns. So let's go ahead and jump to Father of All. Oh, American Idiot, I'm almost positive that was free because we had that little polyrhythm moment. We had the double spam at the end. There was one other thing. He had that little single Saber section. Those are all trademarks of Freak. So next map is Father of All. Double spam already, so I'm thinking it's Freak. And Freak doesn't necessarily use these all the time, but just a lot of his older maps that I've played, he's used them a lot. Now, as we play this map, I'm not noticing any horizontal notes. I forgot I'm not playing in practice mode, and I need to be. I really like how they chose to just turn off all the lights right here. Usually, having the map dim a lot of the time is just an annoyance more than anything. It's one of those mapper tropes that I see. People just want to turn off the lights anytime something goes quiet, but they use it sparingly enough to where it's still a powerful effect. So far, the mapping is pretty bog standard. They're all horizontal or all vertical nodes. I haven't seen a single vertical so far. This is really safe. All of these patterns are safe. The first time we see a mix-up is right there. with that nice little guitar trill. And I feel like there's a missed opportunity right there where Billy Armstrong says, "Come on, honey." Um, I feel like you could have done a lot of things right there instead of just keeping a grounded stream for that entire section. A lot of the times when you see a vocal lift up on a high, they'll have a note either really high up in the air, they'll have maybe one hand go up and one hand go down at the same time, but nothing was done there. They just were using the same streams for the entirety of the map that we've seen so far. And I feel like these up notes right here, we're ending on that guitar downstroke, so I would really prefer to see some kind of like really wide horizontal swing. We haven't seen a single horizontal note in this map so far. It's all been up, down, and diagonals. So it would be really refreshing just to add that really strong hit right there on the guitar downstroke right at the end of that pattern. Like imagine just at the end of each of these little, like right before that pause hits, we had a horizontal on every single one of those and they alternate each time we do it. It would feel a lot more satisfying than the patterns we're getting right now. I do like the way how the notes are encouraging you to sway to the side, back and forth, and we have the walls to encourage that as well. The walls are placed really smart to where they're not forcing you to move, but they're giving you a clue that you should move to the side, and it all feels like it's placed very naturally, like the way my body wants to move left and right. Every single measure is placed in a way where it's hinting that you should be moving like I'm doing subconsciously. And judging by the lighting, I'm going to guess this is Ruckus, even though this isn't typically the type of mapping he does at all. Maybe this is it, and we get our first horizontal notes, and just the absence of them so far makes them stand out so much more. Let's feel that flow one more time. At least it's being done to a really powerful hit. Which is to its credit, but the map as a whole is kind of boring. From a game designer perspective, maybe that's something you want. You want to have that easier map, quote unquote, so you can get people into the harder Expert Plus maps. All right. Really basic mapping overall. I would guess Freak, but the only reason I would guess Freak is just because I remember when he did the One Hope map a very long time ago that it was very up and down centric, not a lot of horizontal notes. It feels a lot like that map in a lot of regards. But he hasn't done that in so long, and that little lighting moment is kind of telling me that maybe Ruckus did it. And it kind of makes sense because I remember they didn't mention that he did the map for Glide originally, but he just couldn't turn the map into what they wanted, so Freak ended up taking over. So it would make sense for him to do a really safe map right after that, because he's probably burned at that point thinking, damn, it took so long for me to get a map that they wanted. I'm just going to play it safe this time. So maybe it was Ruckus, but kind of leaning towards Freak. Not sure. But it's just not... It's not very clever of a map. It's not very challenging. From a gameplay perspective, maybe they want an easier Expert Plus song in every single pack, so they give you some training for the harder Expert Plus maps. But when you have their headlining song for the new album, I don't think that's the best option to use that kind of gameplay design on. I think you should make this map as best as you can and creative as you can. For example, that Nowhere song was probably a pretty good example of a throwaway song that you can kind of just throw that type of mapping on. But at least this mapping had the decency to throw in some really clever things. Like there's a part in this map where we have offset doubles. So we had down and up notes going back and forth, and they were offset just slightly by like 1/16 or 1/32 or something like that. And it feels really cool. This map really didn't have anything cool going on in it. Not an awful map, just really basic by today's standards. I've got about 1,000 hours of Beat Saber under my belt, so I'm really looking for something that throws me for a loop, or something that really gets me in that flow state of mind where I can just rock out to the music. And although this map does achieve that flow state pretty well, it's not super satisfying once you're in it, once you've memorized all the patterns for the chorus and the verse. It's just not... I want more horizontals in this one, really, is the main takeaway. Anyway, next song, Boulevard of Broken Dreams. Let's hop right into it. Oh, let's talk about Downy Cat again. So let's listen to the song preview on this one. Boulevard of Broken Dreams here. So Downy Cat actually beat games here at their own game. So listen to where this cuts on. Walk a Lonely Road versus I Walk a Lonely Road. Just push your song preview back a little bit. This just sounds so much better in Downy Cat's version. This is used in the Green Day Grenade because it's part of the American Idiot album. Cool lighting right at the intro. They could have mapped to the acoustic guitar here, but they opted not to. We're using walls instead. I agree with the choice. Oh, something I want to talk about. I keep forgetting. Something I want to talk about right here. A little motif that they threw in. Anytime they say go, goes, we use that pattern. Ooh, and I love this. Anytime there's like a really slow part in a song, an introspective part where we solo off to one instrument to really cut through the overall sound of the song, like this one, it's a slower part of the song and we have the guitar just plucking along. We're throwing in some bombs to the side to encourage you to move over. That's part of Beat Game's design language, is to not force bombs into the player's body, with very few exceptions being the rum and bass map and the lighted up map are the only exceptions I can think of where they force bombs into your body. But they're encouraging you to move, so treat them like walls in this instance to move your body over. They're going to help you avoid these bombs in general. They're going to help you hit these notes as well if you treat these bombs like walls. And later on in this map, you're actually going to see that come to fruition. It's going to come full circle with how these bombs play out right at the end. Also, a lot less notes on this map than the rest. And there's not a lot going on, so there's not much they can do. They could have mapped to the acoustic guitar, but the acoustic guitar is playing almost the same exact rhythm the entire time. So it would make the song very boring to play. Every time this guitar ends on that power chord downstroke really hard, and there's a pause, we're getting a stacked note, so keep that in mind. So stack right there, stack right here, stack right there. Also, I think I noticed something, but he says shadow in the lyrics, and when he says shadow, we have a stack note that's blocking vision, and then a note immediately following it with a pause in between, so you can barely see it. So maybe that's a Saber fact. So I'm kind of leaning toward Freak. He's like, oh, shadow, so you can't. It's hard to explain, but I think you understand what I mean. So far, good patterns. Again, we're getting this little cool bomb section. And he mapped to the piano there as well. And I really like that mix-up we did right there. So this song doesn't have a lot of copy-paste lyrics across the verses of it. So instead of copying the patterns verbatim every single time we come upon a verse or a chorus, we're employing to instead change the rhythms that we're using, and it makes a lot of sense here. It gives the map a lot more variety overall. Let's play it one more time. Piano. Oh, there's a part in this map where it says line, and I'm kind of weird to see it not used here, but as it happens again, I'll bring it up. But just remember where it says line there, and we hit the note over here. That mix-up I talked about that I liked earlier. Oops. Snagged a bomb. And there we get right between the lines, and the first time I played this, I audibly laughed, and I couldn't help it because Freak likes to throw in like really just silly interpretations of the lyrics into the songs, and I quite enjoy it, even though it's kind of a meme at this point. Freak, if you're watching this, please don't ever stop doing those little details, as long as they don't make the map worse, that is. But I couldn't help but laugh, and I was like, yeah, this is a Freak map. Not that other mappers don't do it, but he's basically the only one on the Beat Games team that does. And when we walk alone, we got one hand in the air, one hand down. Except that time. Never mind, I take that back, I'm dumb. And we have that window, which I'm kind of curious about. I've never really liked up windows, just kind of placed seemingly random in songs. It's to a really hard guitar stroke, so it makes sense, but it doesn't really encourage any type of unique movement that would be associated to that specific guitar strum. At least not that I'm aware of. There's a couple of guitar strums you can use weird patterns for, like the forget which band does it, but I think it's The Who. The Who does the windmill. And you can do that pattern in Beat Saber by having like a diagonal up in here, and then followed by a diagonal down over here. But I'm not sure if this is trying to emulate something, so this window, to me at least, appears kind of unnecessary because it makes you swing really hard for that. And although that guitar sound is really piercing, the overall sound of the song, I just don't, from a gameplay perspective, it doesn't feel very good, but it's not the worst thing. It's not the worst thing at all. I almost wanted to reset there. And we're soloing now, so we're mixing up the patterns. This is a new structure to the song. And so far, we're nailing all the notes. Now, this is a weird part. We have double downs, and these are mapped to the drums specifically going boom, boom, and you're supposed to reset. I like little details like that. Freak did it in Overkill, where the drums, you hit boom, down, and then another down right after, and it's supposed to emulate the feeling of hitting a drum really hard to the point that your drumsticks bounce back up again for the next hit. In Beat Saber, you got to be a little careful with doing that. Some people use bombs to reset you. Here, it would kind of make sense because we've been established to use bombs already. I think that would have been a good idea, even though I don't like to rely on bombs as a crutch for resetting. It makes a lot of sense to use them here. Maybe even use them on the outside or have them diagonal spacing out. and then bombs right behind them. So you're supposed to swing out, upward, and down again. I think that could have been a really cool idea that you could have thrown into this map. And we're getting some figure eights there. Don't feel bad at all. Those windows making an appearance again. And we've come full circle back to the intro.
On the boulevard of broken dreams, where the city sleeps and I'm the only one, and I walk up, my shadow's only one.
So same patterns as before, but we're mixing up with bombs. Or, excuse me, with walls. And these motifs are all coming full circle now, and it feels great. Like, just everything that we've established so far in terms of patterns all show up in that chorus. We've got those windows that I kind of complained about earlier. We have those swap side doubles going, like, crossing your hands here. We've got all those, and they're repeated. We've got walls showing up. Just everything's coming in here, and it feels really good to see, really good to feel. And don't forget about the bombs from earlier either. They're back as we go into the breakdown of the song. And remember what I said, treat these bombs as objects like walls that you have to dodge. Not only that, but you have to avoid them with your hands. So these bombs that are placed right here are trying to make you lift your hand to the music, and it feels great. And this wall right here that keeps coming in, it's trying to force you to the side, just very gently for a brief moment before those bombs force you back over to the left side again. And at first it was gentle, but now we have walls that are two lanes in width to really make it apparent that you're supposed to move over and then back. So it started out very gently, but it builds into the more aggressive wall that's really forcing you over. And again, up and over these bombs. Kind of weird to see that outro extended so long. I usually beat games like to cut the silence at the end of a song really abruptly. It's just a gameplay design thing. I remember watching a documentary for the original Halo game, and they talked about how they tried to make all the cutscenes to the point so they don't waste the player's time, and beat games seem to share a similar philosophy where they don't want to waste the player's time by having them getting dragged through a really long outro or a really long period of silence. You can see that in the Ghost map. They basically axed the entire outro, shortening it. They shortened Overkill, which was originally a 5-minute song, into a 3.5-minute song. Kind of weird to see that bit of silence dragging on for almost 3+ seconds there, but they stuck the landing at the end of that map really well done. I'm going to go ahead and say this is probably the best map out of all of them. Some parts are really simple, but where Father of All fails in a map, this map succeeds in being simple, but bringing enough unique and fun ideas to the table to really warrant your money if you're paying for a map. If you were to buy one map out of all of these, I would do Boulevard of Broken Dreams for sure. Probably their most iconic song up here as well. That being said, let's jump into Holiday. And this is a map where the NJS really bites it in the ass again. Let's see what they're using. Probably 14 again. Yeah, 14 and 0.5. I believe the song was, what, 70 BPM? Let's pull back up the chart here. And it's almost 80, so yeah, 14, 0.5. Makes sense. I really reckon you don't use those values for this map as well. I'm going to quickly bump it to 16 and 0.25 and see if I can feel the difference real quick. Yeah, that feels pretty good there. Let's go back to the intended values though. I'm going to play the entirety of the song and those values. It would also be nice to see these walls spawn in to the timing of the downstroke of the guitar at the start of every measure. Right now they're seemingly randomly spawning in off beat, it feels like. They get you to move in time with the song, but just the visual effect kind of triggers my OCD just a little bit. Those patterns feel familiar. Starting out, we're getting the most horizontal pattern so far, so I'm going to go ahead and make my final vote and say this is a Yaser map. And when we get that hay noise, we're going to see this stack crossing up into this lane every single time we get that hay. And this pattern is super cool as well. Really creative patterns here. This is that little section right there where we have a lot of notes really fast and those stack notes cluttering up the screen. It's just another scenario where the NJS and spawn offset bites this map in the ass. For this verse, we're getting the same patterns as before. They're not mirrored. They don't always have to be mirrored to introduce variety, as long as the rest of the map keeps pace with adding variety throughout. Really good syncopation in this map as well. See, and this map adds variety in this section. Actually, let's play that one more time. So we're getting, instead of getting that stack to go up here, adding that right here would feel really abrupt because the rest of the flow for this song is on every main beat. We're getting a double note instead. So if we added a single stack here to be consistent with what has been established prior, it would actually make this feel more awkward. So instead of using that stack, we've just got two notes up in the air. So a really good compromise between what's been established so far and keeping with the flow of the patterns that have been established in this one section of the song. And we got our solo. And I really like that little part, the little horizontal going out with the wall. It's really low, and usually we see horizontal notes in the middle there as opposed to the bottom, but it's supposed to really drag out that sustained note like over here to the side. So you're really dragging that note across. We got some precision bombs. Some people are just gonna hate this on principle, but for me it's fine.
The representative from California has the floor.
And we get 3 bombs on the side to go to the bombs away. For me personally, I don't think the bombs need to be exactly on beat where it says bombs away. I think the bombs should have been immediately visible a little further on. It doesn't have to necessarily spawn on beat, but having them be visible and not directly beside you when it says the lyric, I think would have been more fitting. And we've censored the word fags. And we got double ups. I like it. Ever since they did the Believer map with the double ups, which was an idea pitched by Rustic, I get their names mixed up a lot. Ever since Rustic pitched the idea to use double ups in a map, we've been seeing it more and more often. Almost every time it's been a success when it's used, like right here. Could have opted just go down and up, but that would have been so much more boring than what we got here instead. Now I'm starting to remember where I see this pattern from. I swear this is from my Expert Plus Thunder map. The same exact pattern. This pattern. Fun fact, Yaser mapped that one as well for OST. Again, the outro extends just slightly longer than you'd expect from beat games. Ugh, actually that dragged on quite a while. But definitely shorten the outro on that one. While this isn't the worst offender for NJS and offset, I still think 16 and what did I say? I think I said 16 and 0.25 would feel better for this map. I'm just gonna give it a brief play at those settings. Again, practice plugin won't let me go to the second decimal place, so it's I'm just approximating it at 0.2. It's close enough to 0.25 to be hardly noticeable. Yeah, this feels good. Yeah, it feels quite a bit better. It's not a super huge improvement over the ones that's already there. 14 and 0.5. You can get away on this particular map with 14 and 0.5, but I just personally feel that using 16 and 0.25 feels a bit better for Holiday, especially considering that this is a rock song. It's compressed very heavily. The music's played out of an amp, and soundstage is quite small overall, so it makes sense to me. Feels a bit better. I did play this beforehand, the entirety of the map using those settings, and it felt good to me. Next song is Fire, Ready, Aim, which is also from Green Day's new album. So let's jump right into it. Yeah, I can already tell this is Yaser map 2. And the reason I'm saying that is he's very heavily into the horizontal notes. He also really likes those diagonals. We got a left-hand dominant strain, but it's slow enough to not really be noticeable. Ooh, and that's one of my favorite moments in that map. And I keep forgetting to go in practice mode. Right, that hit is so good. And then immediately following that, the patterns kind of break down and they're not so great. Yeah, that whole section is just not the greatest at all. In fact, it's so bad that I think I'm gonna have to change the note jump speed and offset on this one just so I can see if it's really the pattern's fault or not. Yeah, it just doesn't, that whole section doesn't work out the greatest. So far, the map overall has been good except for that little double spam right there. Would heavily suggest changing that. And of course, the map's already out, so the likelihood of them changing stuff is very slim to none at this point. But if I were playtesting these maps prior to release, that's definitely a sticky note I would put on this map, is right at that section, and say, please revise. And we got windows. They're not that bad in that scenario. We had some weird rhythm going on here. I didn't really hear it in the drums, but it felt like there was some 1/8 or 1/6 stepping. Yeah, right there. I am playing with the audio turned down heavily, so it's easier for me to focus on the map while also commentating. Also, so it's not overbearing for you to hear my voice plus the song blaring over it. But I'm not exactly sure what that was mapped to. They can get away with putting notes mapped to music that isn't there. But they've been pretty consistent throughout this pack to at least mapping to some kind of sound. Um, Not really anyone's gonna notice except for really picky people or people looking for something that's wrong. But I don't hate it. It's really fine. It's just a small detail. Okay, now as we're getting to this part, to that lefty stream again, and it's not really a stream because it's at 1/2 of a step for each note. It's not being mirrored here. And if the map is going to be a lefty map, you also can't have a gameplay modifier called left-handed mode and have your map default to left-handed. Just from a gameplay design standpoint, it doesn't make much sense to me. Repeats from the last chorus. I think all these double spam patterns could be handled so much better. Ooh. So the first and second chorus of this song, we didn't mirror at all. And then this one we're suddenly mirroring. Doing in that order, non-mirrored, non-mirrored, and then mirrored feels really weird to me. It's really breaking the flow state. Because when you're used to doing a pattern a certain way with a certain hand, and you enforce that, and then right at the end, pull that away from the player, and forcing them to learn something new right at the end can be a good thing. But right here, it's more annoying than anything. Also, I did mention that those patterns weren't the best anyway. The flow was a bit wonky on it. They expect you to go from very high to very low with these horizontal swings. And if you practice this song, it'll become second nature. Alright, and while I was complaining about those 1/2 stepping lefty streams, it was at least balanced in sections where they're sustained and really fast in this particular section with the right hand being dominant. Um, so maybe I'm gonna kinda roll back on my criticism earlier for that 1/2 stepping lefty stream because it kind of makes up for it in that little section right there. So it's not as critical to change anything there. In fact, you probably don't have to at all because you just made up for it right at the end there. Um, I do want to talk about this one particular pattern before we close out on the song. That right there, although we do have the left saber in the middle row, and it's only having to go down one, we have to do it with a double and a wall immediately after, and just those combination of things happening all at the same time isn't the greatest feeling thing in the world. Instead, you could opt to have this one in the middle there, and it could be a single note, and even though that's not consistent with the stack rule we're doing right here, stack followed by a stack, it'll feel a lot better. Also, let's make this wall over here smaller, and overall I think the map would benefit from it quite a lot. It's just not as, it's going to flow better just at the cost of some of the design established by the map, but I think that the feeling of a map is a lot more important than the design language of the map. Overall, map is pretty good. It's just another one that's hampered by the note jump speed and the offset. Having too many notes on the screen at once. Also, being a rock song, has that compressed sound to it and that small sound stage. So, I would change that one as well. Alright, last song. We're going to close out with Minority, which is another one of their older hits. So this one is very different. It's the only one with very prominent acoustic guitar. Billy's voice sounds a lot different in this song than the others. So something cool they're doing here, and I always forget to go into practice mode. Something interesting that's going on here is how they're switching the hands with the pause. Alright, so right here we're going green, blue, blue, green. So it's not perfectly alternating like green, blue, green, blue, green, blue. It's green, blue, blue, green every time there's a little pause in between that rhythm there. So a little cute thing they put in there to make the map feel just a little bit better. Actually, it seems like they kind of threw that rule to the wayside for that particular moment. Yeah, they're not 100% consistent in applying that syncopation of the hands alternating right there, but you can't feel it too much, but it's something that's going to flow off, gonna hurt you being able to just zone out to the song and being able to play it. I feel like my hands were just kind of along for the ride in this section back here. I'm going to play it over one more time so I can get a second opinion, but it just doesn't feel really good the way my hands are switching off here. And I feel like you could have mapped to a lot more here too. My hands, I feel like, are being suspended just slightly too long. I really did like that motion we had with the green going up and the blue going horizontal right under it, giving you that sweeping motion. And we're getting what sounds like a very similar chord being struck here, but we're getting up notes instead. It's for a good reason that it's up notes instead, because there's a stream immediately following it, and having one hand up and one hand down for a stream right after can sometimes feel awkward, depending on what you're going for. Alright, and I really like that little sweeping stream that we had right there. I almost want to say this is a ruckus map, because me and him were working on a map together, and he really seemed to like this one particular stream I had because it was aesthetically pleasing to him, and it looks exactly like the stream that we just did. Yeah, this. That felt pretty good right there. I really like how we mixed up those doubles with those single notes. Do it one more time. Yeah, that's one scenario where they're saying screw that rule of green, blue, blue, green, or vice versa would be blue, green, green, blue. I can definitely notice it when I'm playing through. So I would put a sticky note on that little section too, saying maybe revise that. I think this section is my main complaint because I feel like you could do so much more with the syncopation. I feel like some more notes should be here. That's a cool little, we're doing a little diddly here with these notes staggered out the way they are to be, I'm guessing, 1/8, but feels really fun. And it's spaced out to the structure of the music as well, so we're getting that same little diddly pattern over here, twice in a row, followed by twice over here as well. And it looks like we mixed up. I don't remember seeing this horizontal note again, unless it's just the fact that I'm right-hand dominant, and it didn't really get me until it's done with the left hand. Right here, this little note, it looks like we're cheating flow into a triangle. I'm not sure if it was done earlier, and this is simply because it's mirrored now that it's standing out to me, because now I'm doing it with my left hand as opposed to the right. But it really sticks out here. I'm almost positive that this is probably just mirrored, and I'm just crazy because I'm right hand dominant, but I can feel it stick out here now. So all these double notes that we're hitting so far, most of them feel good, except specifically for the ones that go straight down, just don't feel so great. They're really choreographed to a specific motion, and your hands are just in free fall for the entire time that we got to do this these type of motions that are choreographed. Much would have preferred to have some bombs or some walls here instead to guide your motions and what you're supposed to do. These are just mostly seemingly random at this point as to why these patterns are in the specific shapes they are. They're choreographed, but I don't think they're to a dance. I really doubt Green Day makes a music video where they're dancing in it. So, yeah, specifically the ones that are completely horizontal or completely vertical. So these ups right here feel awkward. Also, the down ones that preceded it feel really awkward too. I'd rather just keep with these diagonals and these horizontals instead. All right, that's all the songs so far. Good for me because I've been playing this for about 4 hours straight now, and it's good to see they have some short tracks in here to help me out. But American Idiot was an okay map. Father of All was kind of poor overall. Just not very good map in my opinion. Boulevard of Broken Dreams definitely really good. Holidays really good. Fire Ready Aim was pretty good too. Minority was okay. The only one that I really didn't like at all was Father of All. And across the board, I feel like note jump speed and offset should be changed specifically for American. Let's see. I think American Idiot needed it pretty bad. Yeah, American Idiot was one that needed it. I think Holiday did too. Those were the two main ones. Yeah. in this one probably as well. Memory's starting to fade me as I'm going into my Beat Saber coma here, but across the board, the biggest issue seems to be note jump speed and offset, and that seems to be the case for a lot of these legacy maps that follow my old chart. Even though some of these charts do not follow mine exactly. For example, Boulevard of Broken Dreams, it seems like they've doubled the BPM from 83 to 166, and then they used my value for 160 in my chart that I showed earlier. But that seems to be the biggest kicker for me. Again, all the maps are pretty decent, standouts being Boulevard of Broken Dreams, Holiday, and Fire Ready Aim seem to be the best ones. Father of All and Minority have some slight issues with them that I would fix, namely note jump speed and offset. Father of All's patterns I would just scrap the entire map and just map it up from the ground up. And I think one of these two maps had that stack pattern I didn't really like. I mentioned that as well if you want to rewind in the video, find exactly. But that'll do it for now. I think the next video we're going to be doing is for either Rocket League or the 360 maps. I'm not quite sold on if I should make a map dedicated to 360. I am playing on Oculus with a wire here. I don't have it attached to the ceiling either, so I'm kind of a slave to my wire here if I play the 360 maps. I have a lot of experience playing the 360 maps on the Quest, but I'm not as confident for making a video actually critiquing 360 maps, knowing that I'm at a disadvantage with my wire situation. So I might just jump straight to Rocket League, and I might consider doing 360 as a separate video in the future. We are also getting new 360 maps on the 26th, I believe, as well as single Saber maps, so maybe that would be a good time to actually consider doing that. So yeah, I think I'm going to jump straight to the Rocket League Monster Cat song pack after this, and then we'll do Panic at the Disco and OST 3. Imagine Dragons, Monster Cat, OST 2, OST 1, and extras will fit in there somewhere as well. Probably right before we do OST Volume 1, I'll do extras. So that's it for now. I will see you in a day or so.